Ismail ar-Rahman-ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Perspective. And on today's show, we are going to be spotlighting a very important issue, not only in our community, but society at large. We're looking at gender-based violence. Now, although this is a daily phenomenon, gender-based violence remains invisible. Why? Simply because half of our society believes that it's a non-issue. We are here today to highlight it as a very serious global phenomena and issue. The rate of gender-based violence reporting is very, very low, and according to one of the largest studies undertaken in the EU, where they involved over 42,000 women aged between the age of 18 to 74, we've now come to realize, not only us, but globally, that gender-based violence is a very, very serious matter, and it is about time governments start taking serious action against the perpetrators of GBV. In keeping with that, the reason why we have three phenomenal ladies in the studio with us today is to highlight a book that has been written by a wonderful woman, and she is accompanied by two of her friends to talk about GBV, not only to me personally, but through her book as well. Assalamu alaikum to you, Farah, Dinah. Welcome to the program, and I salute you for having this amazing book. You've written it. I understand it's being published in the next few days. So the name of the book.
Wa alaikum salam. Jazakallah so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here again. The name of the book is Beyond Her Silence.
And of course, you have two women who are in studio with you. I'd say they are now your friends.
Definitely.
They've contributed to this book as well. Why was it so important to write the book?
It's something that I've thought about for a long time. Women generally don't come forward. Our stories stay with us or within our close circle of friends or family. And I think it's something that, should be out in the open. It's something that will help other women. And that is the purpose of the book as well. The main purpose, to help others.
Nadia, Essop, assalamu alaikum to you. Welcome.
Wa alaikum salam. Jazakallah for having us here.
Thank you for being here. Do you agree with Farah, Dinah, that these stories should be told, these stories should be discussed? Because if we hide and sweep these issues under the carpet, it's just going to go on perpetrating for generations to come.
Yes, I definitely agree. Will be stories just living it, but if we tell our stories, a lot of women can resonate with our stories. And I really would like to thank Farah for encouraging us to tell our stories and actually making this a reality and possible to voice our opinions.
Fatima, Chadili, lovely to have you here again in studio. Previously, when you were here, I was pleasantly surprised that you were so candid about your situation. You too are a victim of GBV. And you go on telling your story and speaking about your story. Do you believe that it can and will make a difference?
Wa alaikum salam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Julie. Yes, I certainly do. And that's why I carry on talking. And I talk to people that I meet, and I talk to people in groups about it. Of course, it's going to be so much easier for other people if I start, and I'm not the only one. There are a few women who are prepared to talk about it. It's been swept under the carpet for too long. Initially, I was also a bit embarrassed to talk about it. And when I realized that the more you are embarrassed, the more it gives the perpetrator license to do what he does. Unfortunately, what I found about most of them are narcissists. And nowadays, we're not allowed to talk about narcissism. But I did realize that most of them are narcissists.
I'll ask you to expand on that a little later on in the show. Okay. let's get back to you, the very brave author of this book, Beyond Her Silence. You gave it a lot of thought, and undoubtedly you came across women. You probably know women in your own circle that were victims of GBV. Did you kind of feel that by writing this book, you're going to firstly give out a very strong message, but sadly, we can't rescue these women, can we? What are you hoping to achieve by publishing the book?
I think, first of all, for these women who have come forward, and the book is not only GBV stories, there's quite a nice mixture of stories.
Oh, wow.
But for the ones who have experienced GBV, writing it down and seeing it in black and white is also a process of healing. I think that's the first step for them. And I think, that's one of the aims of it, that they heal too. And secondly, I think getting the story out. There's so many women experiencing GBV. So I think it's something that they will read, resonate with, and inshallah it will help them to make decisions that they need to make decisions on, and help them with their healing process.
Farah, do you believe that if more women are vocal, that perhaps the numbers will start dropping, that perhaps the men will get a wake-up call and realize that this is not okay? You don't beat up on women in different ways. I mean, not only physical violence, but other forms of violence as well. It's not okay, and you need to change your behavior.
Yes, definitely. And it is a little bit of a catch-22, because the woman who is in that situation has to realize it also for herself. You can tell somebody over and over again that you need to get out, you need to speak up, you need to do X, Y, Z, but they have to feel it inside. And some women's journeys take longer than others, but it is a process. But yes, definitely.
And very sadly, some women will take their stories to the grave, and that's the reality of the situation. Nadia, you come from an educational background. You've been teaching for many, many years. The realization of GBV stories, and for these stories to be told, was it something that happened in your life recently, or is it something you've been pondering for a very long time? But before you do respond to that, let's hold that thought. I think it's almost time for a break, but very quickly, if you can just touch the surface of that, we'll pick up after the break.
Okay, even though my story is not about GBV, it is about a loss that I've experienced. My husband passed away in an accident. But being an educator, I feel from a very young age, it's very important to make our kids aware, especially our females, that it is not okay to be going through abuse like that. And the awareness should be made out to the community at large.
I'm sad and sorry to hear about the passing of your husband. Allah give him Jannah, inshallah. How did that impact on you? Because that was not, alhamdulillah, an act of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. After he passed away, did the whole GBV issue resonate with you more strongly? And if so, why?
As I said, for me, it was about loss. And it is what, as a single parent, I had to raise my kids on my own. And there was a lot of challenges that went with it.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is women in an abusive relationship are really alone. They're doing everything on their own. They have to be survivors. And that's what you're saying to me here. After the passing of your husband, you had to survive. Yes. So in a sense, you kind of resonated with what a woman in a GBV relationship feels like, alone and having to do everything on her own.
Yes, definitely.
Fatima, I found your discussion so interesting the last time around, and you spoke about narcissism. Why did you use that word? What exactly are you trying to say? We know narcissists are arrogant, selfish, bombastic, their way or no way, they right, you're wrong, etc., etc., etc.
Um, okay, I'm a person that needs to be counseled all the time. I really don't make those decisions for myself. So, through counseling, I found that none of my counselors ever mentioned the word narcissist, and um, it's just recently that this word has popped up, you know. And when I did try to do a little bit of research, and they said they were not allowed to, they were not allowed to uh, judge a person, so that is why they can't call him that. But that's exactly what they are. They're so selfish, self-centered. Everything's me, and nothing's about you. You just get thrown by the wayside, you know. And for some strange reason, I did stick in that relationship. If I reflect on it, I think it comes from childhood issues. I think that's where it comes from, the inner child, the things that I had been through as a kid, which is a long story to tell you, but that's where my reflections go.
Okay, we're going to take an ad break and we will reflect right after the ad break. There's so much to uncover. Yeah. And I just hope it's not too painful and brings back too many dark memories for you, but all of that after the ad break. 3 amazing women in studio with me talking about GBV, talking about their stories, and of course this amazing book will be launched on the 31st of January, and we do hope you're going to go out and get yourself a copy and start understanding the lives of people that are in these type of relationships. Welcome back. We're talking GBV, and we are aware of the fact that GBV isn't only about physical violence. Now, I want to share some statistics with you, and it is said that 1 in 3 women in the UE have been physically abused since the age of 15. 1 in 2 women in the EU have experienced psychological violence from their partner, and 1 in 8 women have experienced economic violence from their partners. And all of that equals or relates directly to GBV. Farah, in your understanding of GBV and in all the research that has gone into your book, what have you come up with?
There are a lot of women who are going through various stages of GBV. A lot of women who started the process of contributing their stories to this book pulled out at various stages, unfortunately. But I have to respect, their wishes, their story. They weren't ready to share their story. And I'm hoping, inshallah, that they'll come forward maybe for the next edition of this book. But there are a lot. There are so many, and so many women stay quiet about it. And I think that is the saddest thing ever, because there's no healing involved. There's no moving forward. There's no progress in their lives. And for various reasons, they can't say anything.
And earlier on, I spoke with Nadia about the loss in her life. She indicated that hers is not a GBV story, but she has made a contribution to the book. But she spoke about loss, and I added to that, suggesting that women in an abusive relationship does experience a lot of heartbreak, a lot of loneliness, and a lot of loss. But I think more importantly, they're living in constant fear of when is the next blow up going to happen.
Yeah.
And that is horrifying. Fatima, I think you've had lots of such moments in your life.
10 years.
How did you cope?
Yes, Julie, I think I followed a pattern. My first ex, the marriage lasted 3 years, but he was also quite narcissistic in his ways. He just wasn't physically violent, so I didn't experience any physical violence. But the second marriage, unfortunately, I followed the pattern and married the same kind of person. But this one was so extreme. 4 years of heaven. I thought, God, why did I choose the first husband? It was wonderful. He'd cook. He was such an amazing partner. After 4 months, it was hell. It was hell. He never came home. I wasn't allowed to question him. We had to go into strange places to look for him. And it was, but it carried on for 10 years. That's why I say there's something that I couldn't really put my finger on. But these days when I reflect, I figured that it is the thing that we keep quiet about in our community. We're not allowed to talk about these things. And I think that was the problem. And one day I watched a program on Oprah, and she and Dr. Phil, and it was exactly my story. And that's when I decided, it was 10 years later, and that's when I decided, that's me. So then I stopped and I said, this is where it stops. And I started to pack my boxes. And I told him, I said, I'm leaving. I can't live with you anymore. I've stomached it for 10 years, and we'd had 2 kids already. And I said, now I'm leaving. And unfortunately, I never managed to take out a single box. He poured 20 liters of paraffin and burnt my entire house down. So, yeah, I battled for 3 years. I battled getting to grips with it, but, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made me strong. I have to tell you, in that time I worked and I brought up my 2 kids alone.
Your kids are young adults.
They're young adults now.
And have they questioned you regarding going so public with your story? And how do you justify? Because these stories are ugly, and our community particularly would always sweep these stories under the carpet. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we'd hear our mothers and our grandmothers and our aunts saying, you deserve it. You made him do that. Yeah. You provoked him to beat up on you. So the poor woman not only got beaten up by the husband, but the community as well punished her further. So she had secondary punishment going on there as well. How have your kids responded to all of this?
Julie, I think the thing I did was my counseling was done with counselors. And I didn't turn to anybody who was unprofessional for that kind of advice. Alhamdulillah, I had good medical aid, so I went to really good clinics, and I went to good places to get my counseling. So, and I didn't give the kids an opportunity to question me, because they were so little, they didn't understand that kind of abuse. Neither did I. I just carried on rolling in this relationship, taking the abuse, taking missing nights, and he didn't pay bills and whatever. I just rolled, and when it came to a stop after 10 years, that was it. I had so much, and I was so full of it, I didn't take any more, and I never took him back. He begged.
You took back your life.
I took back my life.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Nadia, your story is not about GBV. Listening to Fatima sharing a story, and you've also written a piece for the very same book, Beyond Her Silence. Undoubtedly, you've read the book, and you've read the other ladies' stories. How does it make you feel about women having lost their power originally and now taking back their power by sharing their stories, or perhaps leaving the relationship?
First of all, I think the stages that we all go through, especially with Fatima, going through, I think all of us are now aware of narcissistic behavior, where they love bomb you, especially when you speak about the first 4 months of your marriage. You know, everything was like all hunky-dory, yes. And then once they've got you, you know, then the abuse started. And like I said, as women, we all now are aware of narcissistic behavior. And it's really difficult to come out of that because they continuously breadcrumbing you and giving you that little bit to carry on. And that's why a lot of women stay in the marriage. You know, they make up for the abusive behavior in maybe little gifts and being loving towards you. And then it's just a cycle that carries on.
The pattern keeps repeating itself.
Yes.
It's like a yo-yoing.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Back and forth, and you think you're going to be okay, and you're actually not.
And you believe them.
And you
believe him. You believe him because, as Nadia said, they love bomb you. And then you kind of think it's going to be okay after this time. I know, have done a lot of research in all of this. How does all of this sit with you? You're not a victim of GBV, alhamdulillah, but you know a lot of people around you that are. How does it make you feel? Kind of thinking, why don't you take back your power? Knowing that in the past with our mothers and our grandmothers, they were totally economically and otherwise dependent on their husbands, and they had no way out. They had to stick with those marriages.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think back in the day, they had, like you say, they had no choice. But I think this generation, probably my generation, is coming out of that a little bit, and definitely the generations after us are not standing for, you know, any sort of nonsense, or, you know, they speak up. I mean, I have daughters myself, and I've brought them up to be strong, independent women. So, you know, I would like to think that if they were in that situation, they would stand up, or they would definitely tell me, and I would stand up and I would do something about it. But yes, yeah.
Okay, very interesting discussion happening in the studio, but by no means is it not hurtful at all. You know, you feel so saddened. It's so, it kinds of weighs down on your heart knowing that this is what's going down in the lives of women globally, not only in our community, but globally. And it's about time we as women took back our power, write these books, share these narratives, and even by just, you know, publishing a book like this, Beyond Her Silence, maybe, just maybe, it's going to give some women the strength, the courage, and the resolve to take back their lives. We'll be back with you in a minute or two. Welcome back. Farah Dinah Ismail is my guest. She's an author. She has collaborated with a few other women to share their stories and put together an anthology called Beyond Her Silence. But it's not all about GBV. There are other stories in the book as well. It is being launched on the 31st of January, and I'm sure it will be available in bookstores. We'll get her to share with us where we could get our hands on this book. But more on GBV, the horrific statistics globally. In this situation, we're talking about statistics in the EU. They, according to the study that was carried out in 2024, 1 in 10 women have experienced sexual abuse and sexual violence since the age of 15 and over, the tender age of 15. 1 in 20 women have been raped, and that doesn't mean to say it doesn't happen in our community. And also 1 in 3 women have been sexually harassed at work. Frightening, isn't it?
It is. It's quite horrific. Yeah.
Would you say a similar picture plays out globally? These are statistics from the EU. In South Africa, what is very unique here is we have the situation of femicide.
Yes.
And I mean, Allah alone knows when and how and why, those situations happen.
Yes, yeah. And I don't think the statistics are a true reflection of what's going on. I think a lot is not reported, one swept under the rug, you know, and I think women are scared to come forward as well. They're scared also to confront the perpetrators. So I think it's something that needs to come out in the open and needs to be talked about and discussed.
I've been looking into GBV as well, and I've talked with various people about it. And one of the things that, you know, when we talk about narcissistic behavior, some of the women have been telling me that the reason they remain silent is the perpetrator threatens, they're not concerned about their own health and well-being, but the perpetrator threatens their children and other family members.
Yes.
And they are so terrified that if they go public, then their family members or their children might get harmed.
Yes. Yeah.
So that does indicate several issues here, Farah, and that is we're living still in a very patriarchal society, and there are other factors that play here as well. Yes. Men not feeling good about themselves, men with very low self-esteem, men with a multiple set of issues that are driving them to perpetrate violence on women.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's something it's global. It's not, you know, only relating to the EU. It's throughout the world. Women are going through all of these struggles. They can't say too much, like you said. There's threats to their family. What avenues do they have then? Unless they actually remove themselves from the whole situation, go into basically into hiding or relocate, or, you know, it's a very difficult topic, and it's very difficult to find the best solution. Each individual woman has a specific set of circumstances.
And it's so unfair that your life then, as the victim, gets put on hold simply because this narcissist has this power over you.
Yes, yeah.
This, as far as he's concerned, this immense wealth of power.
Yeah.
And he is going to call all of the shots.
Yes.
And you are this little puppet just pandering to all his whims and fancies. Nadia, how do you read all of that? Coming from an educational background, I'm wondering if you had opportunity to interact with young people and raise these issues at some point.
Yes, well, most of the learners that I've interacted with, they were from the disadvantaged communities. And a lot of them, the perpetrators is people that they know. It is family members, their uncles. And a lot of cases, then we had to refer to the social worker and also counsel a lot of them, you know. And it's very sad because at such a young age, they're being exposed to GBV. And as Fatima said, she was also into her relationship that it almost feels that it's norm. It's a norm, you know. That
sadly, we do normalize it, don't we?
Yes, yeah. So, yes, definitely, I feel it's important to have that awareness.
And I think it's something that they grow up with. So that's why they do think it's normal, because it's from a young age it happens. So
the sad reality is Nadia spoke about in the education scenario that she's in, she worked with kids from disadvantaged backgrounds. That doesn't mean that this is not happening in the suburbs or in affluent homes. That doesn't mean that an educated man perhaps is not a perpetrator. And you must have come across a lot of that in your research.
Yes, yeah.
What does the stats look like?
Just from the women that I've dealt with, it's across the board. I think there is no sort of minority group that you can hone in and say it's only them. It is literally from the bottom to the top. So,
Fatima, you've undergone a lot of counselling. What have you gleaned from all of that? What is it that makes these men such monsters? Is it about power? Is it about control? Is it about their very tiny little self-esteem that they have? Is it about men that come from really very damaged backgrounds and childhood? And then when they grow up, they decide that, all of the damage, that they've experienced, they kind of hitting back at society.
Just the self-esteem, the low self-esteem. For example, my ex, he's late now, but he came from a very good home. He hails from Morocco, and he's a law graduate. They sent him to school, they sent him to college, they took care of him. He came from a very good home, but it's the low self-esteem that, I don't know where that stems from, because I didn't see him grow up, but there's nobody else in his family like him, so I don't think it's, what were those other things you mentioned, Julie? You said besides a low self-esteem, it's not the family. It has nothing to do.
Control, power,
No.
wanting to be, not wanting to be invisible, wanting to be recognized.
Like I say, it's mostly the low self-esteem, because that's where they get the power from. You see, if you're missing, if they don't have somebody to abuse, then the narcissist is dead. He goes around looking for some. That's why he kept pulling me back into his circle, and I kept trusting him. As much as my sisters and my mom said, you can't do this. You can't trust him anymore. And they kept coming in and helping me and rescuing me out of the situation. But it took 10 years before it actually sunk in that this is not going to change.
You went for extensive counselling. It's made you a very strong woman.
Yes.
You've taken back your power.
Yes.
But I think in these situations with perpetrators or men who abuse women or abuse other people in their lives, clearly it indicates that they are broken. They are broken human beings. They need to be fixed, and only they can fix themselves. They need the counselling more than we as the victims.
They don't believe it. They don't believe it. They really don't. Yeah.
Did you try getting your husband to go to counselling?
We did initially. I realized there was a problem, and we took him. I can't remember. There was a government counselling service in Fordsburg, and I took him there. And he'd come home and he'd say, "Do you know that counsellor? She actually likes me. She asks me these kind of questions. It means that she likes me. She has an eye on me. I don't want to go back there." So,
a warped sense of you.
Yeah, a warped sense of self as well.
Yeah.
And they would then misrepresent the situation simply for them to get out of the situation or make you feel wrong or stupid. How do you see all of this, Nadia, coming from the background that you do?
Yes, definitely. And like Fatima said, his lowest self-esteem, he's actually in her relationship that uses his power over you to make him look like the powerful person, the person in charge in the family. So that is definitely narcissistic behavior. And the sad part is they don't recognize this behavior and what they are doing wrong.
And
for
the
them
fear that they perpetrate, they seem to read it as respect. And it's far from the respect. It's just fear and loathing towards that person. But let's go for an ad break. We are talking GBV, the effects, the behavior. And if you are a victim, you still have time. There is still room for you to reassess your situation and decide to move out of that situation and take back your life. Gender-based violence is a scourge not only in our community, it is a global issue, and I think it's time that women specifically stand up and call it out as loudly as you can. Now, 1 in 5 young women aged 18 to 29 have been sexually harassed online. Also, 1 in 5 women have experienced stalking, and 50 women have lose their lives every week due to domestic violence in the EU. And earlier on, I spoke to Farah, Dinah, and we spoke about femicide in South Africa. So as you can see, it's not unique to South Africa. It happens all over the world. So Farah, back to you, your work, your book, your research. It's being obviously launched in a few days' time. How do you feel about it? How those stories on GBV, how strong are they? And do you think it's going to resonate with a lot of women?
Oh, yes, I definitely think they will. The book obviously is a combination of stories, not only GBV, but the GBV stories do stand out, and I think they will speak to hopefully lots of women, and inshallah make a difference. That is the whole purpose of the book. I'm very excited about it. We have incredibly brave women that have come forward, not only with the GBV stories, with all the stories, because to tell your story is not always easy. It's taken a lot of persuasion, probably on my part, a lot of nagging to get them all onto paper. But I think they're incredibly brave women, and I'm just so thrilled that they have come forward.
I can't wait to get the book.
Me too.
But when we talk about, the book, we know that not all of us are writers. You've been gifted this beautiful talent of writing. So when women brought their stories to you, some of them were probably very raw. Did you have to do a lot of editing and so forth to get it in a form that would be readable and understandable and easy to follow?
I did do that for some of the women. Some of the women came with the stories already, and I just did grammatical corrections and things like that, or sentence construction. There were a few women where I wrote paragraphs for them or suggested sort of certain edits. But yeah, it's been quite a journey to get it to where it is, and I'm just incredibly proud of it, and I'm proud of all the women that have come forward. Yeah.
And so you should be. How long did it take from idea generation and then, working on it and then starting your network of women to submit their stories? How long was that journey?
Probably over a year it's taken. We had, I think the last time I was on your show, we did an event where we got women together. Fatima did tell her story at the event. And I think it's something we need to do more regularly, get women in a safe space where they can talk, where other women can listen, where they can have a little bit of a Q&A, offer advice, get some input. And I think that will help women in general. But yeah, it took that amount of time because there was a lot of editing. Eventually it went to the publisher, who then further edited, proofread, formatted. And then I've done further edits from there. In fact, I've just sent the last lot of edits in. So it's been a process, but alhamdulillah, a good one.
This has been a bit of a shift from your poetry and prose and all of that.
Yes.
Why did you decide to kind of move on to the grittier side of life?
It's a book that I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to do a book of short stories and women's stories. My mother suffered from GBV, so I think that sort of spearheaded it because obviously I'm writing my original book is my life story, which I haven't yet finished. But I thought this would be a nice way to collect women's stories. I'm all about the healing process, helping wherever I can. And I think it's a book that will resonate with a lot of women.
And you, Nadia, what are you hoping to get out of this book? You've shared your story as well. Your story is a story of loss. But what do you hope that not only you, but other women will get out of this book?
I would like to tell the women out there that have experienced loss or maybe gone through a divorce that they mustn't be so hard on themselves, and also they do have the inner strength to overcome it. yes, it is a change in your life, but it's not the end. You can make a life for yourself, you know, and also you don't need to have all the answers, you know, take it day by day. And time is definitely a healer. And, you know, there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Subhanallah. I'm going to pose a question to you, and I'd like Fatima to respond to it as well. When you approached women to share their stories, was there a fear of being marginalized, being victimized, being being judged, and also society or the community saying to you, how can you wash your dirty linen in public?
Yes, of course. And that's why I think at the start of this book, we had probably about 20 women that came forward and wanted to share their story. And slowly over the duration of the year, one by one has dropped out. And we were down to, I think, 10. It's a book of, I think it's 11 stories. One of the authors wrote 2 stories. But yes, and it was because of those reasons. They were scared or not scared, but apprehensive about it's all a question of what people will say, what they will do, what they will think of them. And it is hard to get your story out there if that's your thought process. And they weren't ready. But I'm hoping, inshallah, they will come back and they'll look at this amazing book of women who have come forward and shared their stories. And they'll want to share theirs as well.
Which tells me, even though you haven't launched yet, you're working on a part 2 already.
I am. I see it as one of many, because I think I think it's so therapeutic to be able to tell your story. I mean, a lot of the stories in this book are anonymous. Women haven't put their names to the actual stories, which I think is, I respect that as well. Or they've used a pseudonym, which is fine. I don't mind that at all. It's the story that needs to get out. I respect their privacy, but I think it will encourage other women to come forward and want to share their stories.
Inshallah. And collectively, we can make a difference.
Yes. Yeah.
I think if more people and more women shared their stories, maybe, just maybe, it will give these narcissistic men a wake-up call. Fatima, you were very, very brave. You have been speaking very openly about your situation of abuse. At any time, were you ever confronted and told that you were the cause of everything that went wrong in your life? Were you blamed? Because in a patriarchal society, women always take the blame for something that goes wrong in the family circle.
Julie, I think I've been so fortunate. Nobody ever pointed a finger at me. People listened. I think they actually got a shock about me speaking out, but I didn't want anybody else to be in that situation that I was. Yes, in that 10-year period that was me, I wouldn't dare do it. I probably would have been bashed to death then. But when I came out of it, I think that strength and that, yes, it took me 3 years. I went into depression and I had to deal with myself. But after those 3 years, when I came out of it, I had so much strength and I said, wow, did I go through all that? I'm out of it. I'm free. And then I started talking. I spoke to the newspaper. I spoke on the radio. And I wasn't scared to talk about it anymore. All that fear that I had, had left because I lived in complete fear for those 10 years. I can't explain to you the type of fear. I grew up so freely, we spoke openly at home and we didn't have this problem. But that 10-year marriage really caused so much fear. I can't tell you. That's why I say the counseling is really, really important. And I'm out of that fear completely. And I hope that women listening will take a bit of strength from me as well and talk about it and fight this abuse. It really is abuse at its height.
At the time when you walked out of the marriage, when you decided you're taking back your life,
yes,
your ex-husband was still alive.
Yes, he was
Did he
alive.
ever confront you and say to you, how can you go about talking about him?
No, he didn't. I think he knew it was the truth. He knew. He never ever confronted me about it, and neither did my family. They knew what I had been through.
And alhamdulillah, you've moved on.
Yes.
We've got about a minute and a half to wrap up time. I'll give you a minute or two to talk very quickly about your book, why women should read it.
They need to read it. There's such a lovely mix of stories in there. And I think every woman can derive some kind of benefit from one of those stories.
Inshallah.
And a lot of it we are going through collectively as women. We are going through a lot of those experiences.
Where can we buy the book and what does it cost?
The book will be available at the book launch, which is on the 31st of January at Barefoot Space in Westdean. The book is 220 Rand at the book launch. It will be on Amazon and in bookstores thereafter.
Thank you so much for being brave enough to pester the women to share their stories. Final word from you, Nadia.
My final word, that I really want to thank Farah for encouraging us and making our voices heard, and for editing and making this a reality. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
And thank you, Fatima, for being so brave, for sharing your story with us for the second time here. May your story continue touching the lives of other women. Thank you all for being so very brave, for coming in and sharing. I feel very empowered, alhamdulillah. Please do go out and buy the book, Beyond Her Silence. And I think you need to understand what's going down in the community. Once you've read the book, perhaps you can put a hand out to anyone who is struggling in an abusive relationship. All of us can do our little bit to make a meaningful difference. Time for wrapping up. I do hope you've enjoyed the show. I commend my amazing guests here. Until the next time, as always, Assalamu alaikum and Khuda Hafiz.